I'm Sadie Groom I'm the CEO of Bubble Agency. I'm here with Elliot Hackney, who's the Managing Director of Fellow Studios. We're going to talk about fan engagement in sports and what Elliot in particular is doing. So over to you, Elliot, first to explain a bit more about what it is you do.
Yeah, so I'm the Managing Director of Fellow Studios, as Sadie mentioned, and we are a creator-first podcast, video show, creator-focused, basically production studio. And we work with a ton of online creators, and we're created and started by two online creators you may or may not know in Cal Freezy and Chip, who have been in the YouTube scene for over a decade, which is strange.
Does that mean people of like my age group would know them, not just our children?
I'd hope so. Yeah, they've been around for quite a while.
And you've got, there's two of your big podcasts, it's a video podcast as well, The Last Lap and Pitch Side. Do you want to explain a bit about what they are and sort of the numbers of subscribers you're getting?
Yeah, of course. So obviously there's a lot of traditional media and license holders here in the room, and we are basically the second screen. We are the alternative to your company, accompaniment for whilst you're watching live sport, whether that be football, whether that be F1. We've got shows that cover both of those realms, and they're all with your people and creators that you may have a more personal connection with, rather than your traditional commentator, say on a football game or F1 race. And we offer that bit more interactivity, bit more personality. Sometimes we've got guys that are well known for their own content on online content that have been around for quite a while and grown huge audiences of their own.
Yeah, and what sort of audiences are you getting?
So the Pitch Side has been around for about a year and a half, and it's really on the up. It's hosted by Theo Baker and Reeve, and they we're on about 140-50k subscribers, and some brands are taking notice of that. We've recently worked with Nike and Liverpool to go and interview some of their players. We did the England kit launch with Michael Owen, Farrell Williams, and most recently we had Ollie Palmer on from Wrexham, the documentary that's done so well across the world. So yeah, we're growing fast, and Last Lap has only been around for half of the last season. It's very new, but we're very tech heavy in terms of we've got an API feed that feeds in the data, all the data that you'd see on Sky. We've got a lot of interactivity with the audience in terms of other online shows where the fans are doing live quizzes, they're doing live polls, we're having instant back and forth that you wouldn't get elsewhere. So yeah, that Last Lap's been around for a little while. Only 20-30k subscribers, but we're growing fast, and F1 is just such a growing and emerging sport at the moment,
as we've heard about today. Do you want to tell us a bit about the technical setup that you've got in your studio, and particularly why it's different to what other people have got? Yeah,
they haven't paid me to say this, but Blackmagic are up there. We use a lot of Blackmagic kit, of course, a lot of the cameras, ATEMs, the ways that we record. We're clipping a lot of stuff out live, whether it be TikTok or Twitter, a lot of the highlights from match reactions, from big things that have happened in a race. And of course, we feel as a studio that is every bit of content that we make is built TikTok first now, whether that be the sets and the color, the colors that are involved, to how we've lit the studio and set. And we're always thinking short form first, even though the show itself is a long form show, watch long, that lasts two and a half hours, because that's where we see the majority of gains now in terms of growth and audience and reach, and that brings people back to the original source of the content. So everything we do is TikTok first at the moment, and with the kit that we use, we're getting great quality, and we're able to adjust those colors because we think everything should be vibrant and noticeable and stand out in your feed first above the other pieces of content. So all the kit that we use helps us achieve that.
And how does it, I know we talked about this before, but TikTok versus YouTube, you were saying that it's TikTok first. What about YouTube?
Yeah, all our content lives on YouTube. Our live streams live on YouTube. That is where our content sits and breathes, and where the audience lives, and where we build the community. But in terms of bringing in new audience members and outreach, we think that short form content, whether it be YouTube Shorts or TikTok, is where we're bringing in new people to the brands, so to say. And that's where I think you've got the most potential to go and bring in new people, just because of the viral nature of the platform.
And do you think that's what sets you apart from your competition? Because there is a lot of, this is a crowded space, especially in those two sports that you're talking about.
No, definitely. And thankfully, the company, as mentioned, started by two people who've been involved in the scene for over a decade. They know how to fine tune, make the most of, all these pieces of content, what should be in there, what should be taken out, subtitling, the way that the content is presented, and all of that is key to our success and our USP, having those guys behind the company.
One of the questions I had, and most people have seen me doing these before, I always want to talk about either Oxford United or golf, and I don't think you cover either of those. So, why have you chosen those sports? Is it because they're so popular, and is there, are you thinking about other sports?
Yeah, so obviously football is an easy one. In a previous life, I created a show called The Kickoff, which some people may know. It's been around for 4 or 5 years now, but was one of the first ever online forms of watch-alongs for the sport. F1, as mentioned, is an emerging market. Personally, I don't know about anyone else in this room, but I've gotten huge into NFL in the past couple of years. And they're a sport that are trying to take it out to the rest of the world. They had the first game in Munich recently, and obviously they have the London games quite regularly, which are sell out almost every single time. And that is a sport that's trying to go through the rest of the world. So from a personal and probably detrimental to the rest of the business in terms of me wanting to do this and get it off the ground before anything else is NFL. I'd love to do an NFL show, although I'm not sure how many Americans are going to tune in and watch English people give their verdict when they've got so much coverage out there.
Got so much coverage of their own. Talking of fan engagement and actually geographies, how does fan engagement vary amongst your subscriber in terms of ages, geographies? How they're doing?
So in terms of football, it's quite worldwide and global, and the age ranges, because of the nature of the show and the creators who are involved, it's your 18 to all the way up to 35, and then you'll see a large drop off. Whereas F1, we're seeing such a unique demographic on the show that we've created. There's a 3-way split in terms of the location geography at the top between the US, the UK, and the Netherlands. And I guess that's because of the emerging market from Netflix and Drive to Survive, UK because that's where we're based and the language that we're speaking, and the Netherlands because of the current F1 champion. Yeah. So but the age ranges on the F1 as well is a much wider split as well. I think it's got a little bit of the older audience, but at the same time, it's still capturing a lot of young people into the sport as well.
And are they engaging in different ways, like in terms of different times and how they're doing it?
Yeah, absolutely. So some people, will tune into the full watch along, but that will tend to be your younger audience who have been built and conditioned through years and years of these sorts of shows and the way consuming media to, you've got your television with your rights holder and your TV coverage, your second screen, which is, potentially your favorite creators or, Twitch streamers or whatever it may be. Whereas some of our older audience just merely come for the podcast segment or the clips that'll be up on the channel later and don't tune in for the full thing and rather watch the traditional coverage themselves, without any second screen because they've not been brought up or watched it that way or consumed content ever that way. So yeah, we've got a bit of a split in F1 especially.
I know Steve mentioned money earlier when he was talking about, and I was telling Elliot earlier that I listened to the last lap this morning on my train on the way in and thought I'm probably not the right audience for this because the first thing was all about manscaping. But so you're obviously getting some advertising from somebody. How is it that you're monetising?
So we monetise our shows at Fella Studios across every single social platform, whether it be Snapchat, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, where possible. And then we work with brands in numerous ways, whether it be a sponsor coming in for the show, and they like you say, they have those ad segments that you probably listened to this morning, through to product placement, through to, the Fellas podcast, which is what originally started the studio with Calfreezy and Chip having a Spotify exclusive deal. So there's numerous ways that we work with brands and advertisers and even the social platforms themselves to monetize our content.
Okay. Question around communities, and we hear a lot about building communities now, and how does community management work with what you're doing? So
there's numerous ways that we build communities and then maintain them and also at the same time activate them. So Obviously, we've got Pitchside and Last Lap, which are fairly in their infancy, so to say, in terms of the brands. But across Fellas Studios, we have numerous podcasts, video podcasts from the Fellas, as I mentioned, which are Spotify exclusives. Saving Grace, which has become the biggest female-led pod in the UK, only launched in March.
What's that about?
Love Islanders, gossip, drama, all that kind of stuff. And the way that we activate those audiences, we have Reddit pages, we have Discords, we have all these communities within the shows and brands. We've just done a UK tour for Saving Grace, and she sold out within 2 minutes because of the hype and activation that we've done around that community through the podcast and other channels away from the show. And then Fellas, for example, are looking into the potential paid subscription model for extra content and other ways that we can have that community involved. They did a merch drop with a card that will give you access to that in the future, but no one knows what it is yet. So if no one in this room could tell anyone that is coming, that'd be brilliant. But yeah, there's tons of ways that we activate the communities that exist within all of these shows, and they are active, they are responsive, they are reactive. We've got a huge audience in Australia for the majority of these shows. We've just done an Australian tour because of the demographics out there are so large. So yeah, the communities are activated, and they're also worldwide.
And are they growing off of each other? So do you find that you know, are they growing because they meet up with people that say, okay, you must do this? And...
Yeah, absolutely, especially from the live events and things that we've done as well. But, you know, we went out to Australia and it was insane, the reception that we got for this show. We didn't even expect it. We did live shows with venues of 100, 200 people. And of course, these were all recorded as well in the segments that we did with Spotify. And there was thousands of people on the website trying to get these 100 tickets. Wow. I think we underestimated our own audience out there, and all sold out immediately. And if anything, forced us into going out there again because there were so many people who couldn't see us. And
you know, you talked about live then. How does, you know, what you do, how do you see it comparing to sort of, I guess, you know, live TV in terms of someone actually being in the audience? And I know Andy and Matt talked about, you know, trying to replicate you actually being in a stadium or at the racetrack, and then live in terms, you know, are people listening to what you're doing, like when the matches? Yes,
it's an odd world. There's some people who send us screenshots or photos of watching the show whilst they're in the stadium. I don't know how the Wi-Fi is doing that in some stadiums, but yeah, it's a strange old world. Some people, like I say, have been so conditioned. You know, I've been in this online creator watch-along sports scene for, 4 or 5 years. And, I'm slowly being conditioned this way now, even though I've come into this as a traditional, viewer of sport. Yeah. I can't watch a game anymore without having that second screen or someone that I know from the online world describing what's going on, or just giving a different viewpoint. And yeah, the communities and the way that they're digesting content is sometimes within the sports arena, and we'd love to eventually get to the stage where, and we're seeing it now in some other countries, Twitch and Spain, for example, are putting some streamers within the commentary box at some La Liga games. Cal Freese, who is part owner of the studio, was one of the first streamers in the UK to be given the actual rights to the Premier League, and streamed a Premier League game with the rights on screen a few years ago. So, we'd love for eventually the technology and the rights holders to look more towards creator-led content and businesses, because it just adds another layer of activation altogether.
Yeah. Do you think that's happening? Do you think that's good? I mean, like, I go to events like Sportel, and that's where you're seeing those sorts of people. Are you going to those sorts of things, or the groups aren't like totally separate?
No, it's difficult. I've only been involved with Fellas Studios since the start of the year, and we're in the process now, doing things like this, of getting our name out there, letting everyone know what we're doing, and that we're, so open to any of these sorts of opportunities to, work with rights holders and, your BTs, your Skies of the world, to do more, because these guys have got huge audiences. I'm absolutely sure that sometimes, the viewing figures from their show, which is focusing on the traditional sport, may even be outdoing the traditional sport and rights holder. So there's definitely something to be done there in terms with creators getting more involved with the traditional media outlets.
Excellent. Well, perfect audience here for that. People were talking earlier about talent. And I wondered if you think that what you're doing is going to be particularly advantageous to getting talent into the sort of more traditional broadcast industry? And
absolutely, if you know, we're seeing it so much more now. I think the space has progressed massively throughout the years. You know, some of the guys that we've used on football shows, for example, you Rory Jennings, James Alcotts, they're out there right now in Qatar doing work with Sky Sports in the morning for an online show. That was unheard of probably 4 or 5 years ago, and there's a whole breeding ground of talent online that are doing shows from their bedroom, shows such as ours from a studio or set, that are they're primed and ready, that have crafted, you know, the way that they speak about sport and their knowledge and, you know, tactical analysis that they've done from their bedroom, that are ready to be handpicked and to make the jump from, you know, online media to TV. So there is a whole breeding ground there of talent that are ready to be, you know, used across traditional media.
And on the technical side as well, are you seeing that? Because obviously you've got a studio, and you know, and I think when I've thought about podcasts before, you think it is somebody just in one room, and you know, you've got quite a technical setup there.
There's varying levels of creators out there, from people who've got whole studios and sets. Some are using API and data from places like Opta and official feeds to provide analytical segments for all their shows, for some of the work and videos they create, all the way to people doing it in their bedroom that are getting way more creative in terms of what they're putting out there, using all sorts of graphic software and you know, video analysis and different forms of media to advance their content. So the level just keeps on jumping up, you know, as we go on year by year in terms of online media, even from the guys that are doing it from home in their bedroom. Right. So yeah, the advancements are coming thick and fast.
Excellent. Right. I've got lots of questions. Right. Where are we? Will online and traditional sports broadcasting merge?
I think it's just a total emerge. I think it's quite far away. But in terms of what I mentioned there, they're certainly getting closer and closer to merging in terms of the talent that's being used. I think we're still a far way off from the rights, you know, being handed over to creators in some way. But in terms of talent, yes, I think we're almost there. You know, you've seen Saturday morning shows that are solely online talent, but placed on TV. Like I say there's some creators that, you know, we work quite closely with, who are being used for certain shows on traditional media, especially right now at the World Cup. I think we're getting closer and closer, but in terms of rights and handing that kind of thing over to creators, I think there's still a bit of a way to go.
A way to go. Someone else got another sort of futuristic question. Do you think TikTok will be the most important platform for content over the next 2 to 3 years? And what sets TikTok apart from other social video platforms?
Yes and no. TikTok's huge. The numbers you can get on there are insane in terms of your view count because of the method and the way of consuming content on there. But I don't think TikTok is built for building a community. I don't think you can build a community on TikTok in terms of you're scrolling through, you see a viral video, you carry on to the next one. You're not necessarily sticking around on that person's page, seeing what else they've done. You know, I've seen about 1,000 TikToks, but I could not name you maybe 990 of those creators.
So is it just all about the numbers for TikTok?
Yes, for TikTok, it's all about the numbers, but then hopefully the content is engaging enough to be able to bring people back to the source where the actual community is being built, the regular content is sitting, and they become, you know, they eventually become a fan.
Yeah. Is there another platform that's out there yet that you could see taken over?
No, not right now. I think there's ideas that I've seen put about by different people for what an ideal social network should be in terms of consuming content. But, you know, there's been advancements made by people like YouTube, for example, are going big into podcasting next year. They're going to have their own element of a podcast platform within YouTube. They're obviously going very heavy on shorts and trying to compete with TikTok. I don't think it's there quite yet, but monetization appears in January, so that's going to be a big butting of heads between TikTok and YouTube Shorts. So no, not yet. I don't think there's one that's ideal.
Elon's not working on anything.
Not that I know of. No, he's just trying to destroy Twitter at the moment.
We won't go into Twitter. How have you managed to get 30,000 subscribers to your podcast in 6 months? Sounds like impressive stats.
Yeah, I guess it is. From the content that we deliver, we build with existing talent. So we've not started from absolute zero. We use, on the F1 show, for example, Tomo and Niran. They've both got large audiences of themselves. I think Niran's on about 800k, Tomo 400k. And thankfully, because of who the studio was started by in terms of Calfarisi and Chip and the huge talent pool we have within the studio, we're able to bring on a member of the Sidemen for a show, or Calfarisi can jump on himself, and that in itself brings an audience to the shows quite early on. So we're quite lucky in the sense that we've got those people to bring on at hand who've got huge audiences to help give the show a boost early on. But the rest of it is down to the way that we create content. There's content going out every single day for every single show that we do. We believe there should always be content every single day on every platform. And from there, the audiences will genuinely grow and just come back to the content, except also with the quality that we're doing, with the tech that we use, and also the sets and the way that we build the studios to be as eye-catching as possible.
How do you find that talent? And my other question was, why do they always only have one name? But how do you, where do they come from? Do they apply to you? Are they already? Do you find them on TikTok? Are you?
There's a mix. So, for example, with that show that we talked about, F1 there, we've gone and handpicked those guys from, seeing how successful they are with their own content, thinking that they would be a great fit. But saving Grace, for example, going away from sport for a second, she was just on TikTok. GK Barry, I think she had about 1 million followers on TikTok, but nothing long form anywhere. They had her as a guest on The Fellas. She came on, thought she was great. She could handle the conversation brilliantly, and went from there and turned into the biggest female-led pod in the UK, selling out UK tours within the space of 8 months. Sometimes it is about handpicking the talent, and you can get very lucky, but sometimes it's about choosing people with existing audiences to activate.
Do you feel like that's sort of going back to a traditional broadcast model then, isn't it? Of, the handpicking the talent. On that, someone's asked, how do you convert a short-form viewer into a long-term viewer when they've traditionally different mentalities?
Yeah, definitely. That is the trickiest bit, especially if someone comes and consumes short-form content solely, and that is a really difficult part. Hopefully, the content is engaging enough to be able to bring them back to the main show or main source of the content. Sometimes that is by fine-tuning the content to make sure it ends on a cliffhanger. Quite clever in terms of we are literally building them up to a certain point within a pod and then just cut it there. And the engagement will go through the roof in terms of when we've posted that TikTok to go in and searching when we got a certain amount of new viewers or subscribers, because we know exactly when we put that TikTok out, how it ended, and then going for looking for that specific part within the pod. We're quite tactical with that kind of thing, and we think if we do content on short form platforms in a certain way, it will bring them back to the original source, and we've seen a lot of success with that so far.
Yeah, someone's actually asked, with short form, I would imagine a lot of curation and editing is required. How do you balance getting relevant content out in a useful window of time?
Yeah, absolutely. So as mentioned there, we have content out every single day across every single platform. We have producers for every single show that are literally just making short form content, and they are all teaching each other their best tactics, sharing with each other what they've seen to be successful in terms of getting people back to the long form content. And that is literally a curation of where can we, what are the best moments and best clips within those podcasts to get people on the hook and be able to bring them back to the original source? What are the best bits that are going to go viral? We always put those first. That's the first TikTok that goes out there in terms of when a new show is launched, to be able to get out there, get millions of views, and then get people back to the source. And then the rest are all just trying to reel people in back to the main show. So, yeah, it's a process we're still working on. We've seen great success, but we still think there's a way to, there's other ways to be able to advance those.
Yeah, someone's asked, how do you manage content creator opinion with rights holder broadcaster value when their authenticity is key, but can be a risk in a live sport?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. That is the most difficult thing, and I think why we're still a little part away from creators being trusted with things such as live content. There is a risk there if you haven't done your background research with this creator. The creator isn't briefed on everything that the way that the content needs to be presented. That is the most difficult part. Thankfully, everyone that we work with, touch wood, that's glass, in the studio is briefed in a way, are professional about what they do,
Yeah.
and have been within a scene in some circumstances long enough to be able to know the way to present content and how professional they need to be. But at the same time, we don't drill that into them into the sense that they lose authenticity
rigid,
and
yeah.
what they are about as a creator. That's why I didn't put up a show reel here today. There's a lot of swearing. There's a lot of there's a lot of different ways of content that you probably wouldn't see on traditional sources. So yeah, that's what I think is still probably the biggest gap in terms of rights holders being given content to creators, is the trust that still just isn't 100% there. But if you pick the right people, I think you're absolutely fine with that.
And it's not regulated, is it? So
No.
there's
Only regulated in the sense that there's a terms of service with some things that you definitely cannot do.
yeah, and you would hope that the people you're employing don't do that anyway.
Exactly.
What do you think about the big broadcasters tapping into those younger audiences, like Sky with Football Daily via YouTube? Any other ways they can do so?
Yeah, Football Daily is a great example, and they've used a lot of their guys across morning shows. There's obviously the show in the morning on Saturdays, which is solely creator focused. I think it is that bleeding in those sorts of creators within the traditional content, whether it be on a football match at a weekend. Obviously they've got the in studio, but maybe they cross over live to someone doing a report at the pitch or outside, and they're speaking to fans. But it's a creator that they've picked and want to test out in traditional form first. But for me, I would give them that shot sooner. It's a long way again, I think, from happening. But okay, you've got 3-4 people in the studio, you've got your ex-pros, but maybe just throw a creator in there as well and see what happens. Sometimes it'll create some of the most exciting and off-the-cuff content. We saw it recently with Speed. I'm not sure if anyone will know who this guy is. His name's iShowSpeed,
He wasn't
a YouTuber.
was he?
No, but I don't think it's on his birth certificate. No, but they literally pulled him into the Sky studio, shot all the content as he literally came over to watch Ronaldo for 2 games. Ronaldo didn't start either and has now left Manchester United, but they got so many viral clips out of just having him around and his presence around in the Fulham ground ahead of the game. And I think they saw the advantage of all of those clips in terms of people even just taking it from source and uploading it to places like TikTok, and it must have been in the hundreds of millions easy.
Wow. One last question before we break for lunch, but what's next for fellas? What's plans?
We've got a number of other shows in the pipeline. We're hoping to more than double our slate by this time next year, and hopefully some more exclusive deals with partners such as Spotify, Amazon, YouTube. We've got a lot of content coming up in terms of obviously the World Cup's on right now. We've got heavy on pitch side in terms of football content, but for the future, a lot more shows with a lot more creators, and hopefully some big strides made by the studio.
Excellent. Thank you, Elliot. I've been asked to remind you that there are drinks in the lock-in from 4 o'clock. So after lunch, don't...
Perfect.
There's 2 more sessions, and then there's drinks in the lock-in, which I believe is opposite. So thank you very much. Thanks, Elliot.
Thank you, everyone.